Awesome. Welcome to Helm Dev Meeting. It's September 11th, 2025. Um, we follow CNCF Code of Conduct. You're recorded. Be nice. And, follow the Code of Conduct in general. And I was just about to repaste. Here we go. Pasting back the link to our weekly agenda docs. I just happened to be the first on the agenda item. Switching hats. So this may be a short one. Actually, perhaps I could have removed it, but I'll speak to it real fast anyway. Matt, we talked about making some milestones. Um, you know what? I think I'm just going to nix this one because I believe I answered my question already. We won't have the 4.0 milestone until the beta is released. I think my main question is, do we do we think we know enough? Like, hey, we know we're going to release by KubeCon to want to put the normal dates on the
We
uh,
we will be releasing for KubeCon. The question
day.
is what day, right?
Right.
Because if you're having the 10-year anniversary, because right, so the 10-year anniversary for Helm is middle end of October, right? In less than a month, we have KubeCon. We're at this point.
Yeah,
We sure is we sure better release a 4.0 because we're
better.
going to talk about it. We're going to have analysts asking us, outlets, all this stuff asking us about it. So we sure should really try hard to release for this, um,
Right. And we don't know
just
the
because
exact
this is our opportune event.
I'm with you. And we don't know the exact day yet for the date for the 4.0.0, which I understand until we get the beta
Yeah.
the exact day. But in terms of in terms of the next patch release and the next minor, we do have a release schedule. Should we go ahead and put dates on
So
those?
yeah, so 4.1 will come at a funny time. That will be the third Wednesday in January. It won't have the full cycle. We'll sync that up with the 3.20 release, just do it all on a big bash day. That way we're synced with the Kubernetes releases. And so that's when that one would be. And then the 4.0.1, I wouldn't put a date on it yet. We would expect it to be the second Wednesday in December for who's around, but we may end up pulling it in if there's something crazy we discover. But that would be the normal date on it. It's now, is there a regression? Does something come up that we didn't find in all this testing we're going to do?
Got it.
This is a major release. Who the heck knows?
So why don't we just so then okay, that all sort of sounds about like what I was thinking. I was,
Yeah,
perhaps we might want to put the dates on the other ones, but so we just keep the dates off for now and we keep those for categorization purposes.
sure.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Next on the cool. Next on the list is Pages on the call, right?
Arian.
Okay. Yes, the floor is yours.
Okay, hey y'all. Yeah, it's been a minute. Wanted to check back in on and update on HIP 24. So this is evaluating the static site generators. Um, Assuming that we still kind of like the goal of trying to migrate the docs, have a new doc site up for the release of Helm 4. Scott and I paired on more of an in-depth review of the evaluation I had done earlier this week. Just because I didn't get a ton of feedback from the group, which is totally fine. But we wanted to make sure it was still moving along. So we did a pretty in-depth review together on Monday. And based on that, and I'm happy to go into more detail depending on what questions there are. But based on that, we're actually thinking Docusaurus might be the way to go for Helm. Um, Really only original con that I had identified there were some potential performance issues for very large sites in terms of build times. Scott's perspective was that was probably less of an issue than some of the other cons that we saw for the other static site generators. Um, but yeah, all that said, basically, again, looking at the timeline of pairing this with the Helm 4 release, wanted to just raise it to the group, see if there are any strong objections to that, any feelings to that, any questions that I can get into. The next stage of this would be to come up with more of a detailed preview that everyone could click around and see with some
So
content in there. We do have like a preview that exists. It's not totally done, but yeah,
Cool.
I'll leave it there.
All right. So as somebody who uses both Hugo and Docusaurus,
Mhm.
why Docusaurus over the Hugo strategy that was previously talked about? Was that Doxy? Um,
Mhm.
why Docusaurus over that? The quick summary of it.
Yeah, quick summary. Hugo and Doxy is a totally serviceable option. It is what the CNCF team currently uses.
Yeah.
It is, I found that some of the functionality that we wanted for the Helm docs had to wrestle quite a bit with Doxy to get it to comply. So, for example, when you're switching between versions, with Doxy, what that would look like is basically you are building an entire static site for each version. And
Mhm.
if you're going down in the drop down, you would basically be opening that whole new site on a back on the intro page versus being able to say, okay, I'm on this page. I want to toggle the version and still stay on this page. That's one example that comes to mind. There were a couple others where I was like, okay, I was able to work with cursor and come up with some workarounds. Was I totally confident in those workarounds? No, like the proof of concept exists, but I didn't love that experience. Um, so again, like, yeah, it's used by CNCF. It obviously gets the job done. Look and feel is maybe not quite as modern. And then in talking to the CNCF docs folks, they have also been discussing updating their recommendation to Docusaurus as well. They haven't, I don't think they've done that officially, or I don't know where they're at in their eval, but yeah, that's some of the some of the main points.
Okay. Okay. You've got example sites for both of them? Are they linked there?
Which
I remember for
let me yeah, let me give
both
you
the
because I have a
Hugo and
new
Doxy and the
link.
Docusaurus. Yeah. If you've
Yeah,
got the two, because I looked at them in the past and I'd like to look over them one more
it's been
time
a
here.
minute, totally.
Yeah. It's been a minute.
It
And I'm
has.
familiar with both because I've set up and I've run both of them. So I'm just
Cool.
curious about what the experience and everything would be like. So yeah, I get the nuances of how some of the docs changes and markdown and things like that. So and even some of
Yeah,
the
and
shortcomings
Matt, I'm
inside of
curious.
DocuSource. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I was curious too, Matt. You said you work with both. Do you have any pros and cons personally, like having worked with both? That you're like, oh, I
Do I
really
have any
loved
pros
this.
and cons?
Yeah. Having worked with both, if you had any takeaways or feelings.
So what I found was, with something like Docusaurus, that is much more of a front end style framework, and lots of
Mm-hmm.
people are not front end developers who work on Helm and other things, and so
Mm-hmm.
some of the projects I ended up with more questions on the documentation, things like that, because it's a front endy type system with Docusaurus. There were also
Mm-hmm.
little things like if you wanted to have variables you embed throughout the documentation and then you have that get used in rendering. That's something that, at least last time I looked, was not there in Docusource. So there
Oh,
was
I use
information you
that.
couldn't
Yeah, we
verbalize.
can do that.
You can do that now? Okay.
I believe so. Yeah, we can look at the specifics. But so I use DocuSource for my day job at Replicated, and
Yeah.
we use partials as repeatable
Okay.
content, and I believe they also have some support for variables. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
but heard on the front end heavy side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of this, when I look at it, what I wonder is how we'll do versioning in this. So have you looked at versioning to say, okay, at every minor, we do an updated documentation and copy it over? What was the thought
Hmm.
process for how often you do a new version in the dropdown?
Yeah, it would be every minor.
Okay.
DocuSource handles it um,
There's a
pretty
point where
easily.
Docusource runs out of points where you've got too many minors or too many versions, and then it starts to
Hmm.
have struggle, and you've got to take out the old versions. There is a point where it does run into that. Uh,
Yeah.
I only know because we've actually run into that with some of the sites. When you get 20 versions back, there is a point where it runs into issues. And so do we have any details on which one scales that way better? No.
That way,
Okay.
I mean, personally, as like a tech writer, I would never recommend trying to host that many minor versions. I would say once you start getting up to a certain number, you just want to PDF the docs. and stop
Yeah.
updating back that much.
Yeah, and part of this even gets into the process then of creating and updating it. Okay, so I create my new
Hmm,
docs for new
hmm.
version, latest. What do I've got to do with the oldest? And the process around that, we tend to be a bit lazy and just add and move on. So this is where I
Totally.
get into to some of that in asking. Okay, yeah, we would
These
have
are
to
very
look
good
at that.
questions. Yeah, and I
Especially when
also,
you start
you
deep
know,
linking, like when somebody links to a page in a blog post or something, if you link to a page in a version and then that version ends up falling out, now the link is dead, right? So how does something like that work when you start linking across things on the internet, people in blog posts or in other documentation pages or articles, and then they come to our docs? How do they actually find that if it now falls out because it's linked to an old version? What is that experience like?
in my experience, anytime you get to the point of deprecating or PDFing an old version,
Yeah.
you got to add a redirect
So we'd
for
have a
any.
redirect for like 40 or no, probably for 100 pages each time we,
I think we would use some regex probably and say like
yeah,
if the link is going to this version, redirect it to this PDF and just say like
okay,
if it has this version in the path,
yeah,
go to the
okay,
PDF. Yeah,
yeah. It's some of the stuff like this that I ask about. Just
these are very good questions. And I'm also
yeah,
happy like for everyone
yeah,
listening with bated breath. Like Matt, if you want to take this offline too, and I'm like we could chat or Zoom
yeah.
or
Maybe we
whatever
can do that.
because
We
I
don't need
like
to
your
take over this whole
perspective.
meeting. Yeah,
Hmm.
there's other topics. Yeah, let's maybe take this offline, and we don't have to include everybody here who can sit through this. But
Yeah,
part of this is I'm just thinking about the broader experience because I know there's so much help content that gets created on the internet,
this is
and that
really
stuff lives
helpful.
for forever,
And the
right? And then it,
workflows, and it has to be maintainable because it's not like, yeah, especially with
yeah,
an open source project, you want to make sure
totally.
anyone coming in knows what the process is for making a new release and keeping it up to date. That stuff is super important.
Yeah, and people even these days reference things in AI, which only keeps content up to a certain date, and then it
Hmm,
gives you a link. If that link is no longer good, what does somebody do then? How do we make that experience not break? These are all the little things going through my head with the docs. Um,
hmm.
so okay,
Very
yeah,
good
let's take
things.
this offline. But yeah, okay,
I'll
great.
start a
Cool.
thread too in Slack. But yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Awesome. Also, just one thing I wanted to note is that one of the features that was kind of nice about that framework too is the ability to have pre-releases in the docs and to see those, even including a canary if we wanted that. Um,
Hmm.
so something we can maybe I guess when you all are looking at that, Matt, and I know Jesse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I already know that. I've done that on other
Got it.
projects, so I'm familiar. Yeah, you keep up, call it latest, whatever, with the canary, what's being built. Yeah,
Nice. Okay. Cool. I just saw that and I was like, oh, hey, we have canaries, and we have pre-releases that we're working on. Anyway. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Right. But as you all, if you, I put the preview links in the chat. I don't think I've added access to the notes doc, but maybe someone, if you want to drop those in. And Matt or
yeah,
whoever, as you're looking through the previews, let me know of like hiccups in the experience. We can talk.
yeah.
Thank you.
No. Thank you for the work on this. I may ask some hard questions and that stuff like that, but I really do appreciate the
I
work you've been putting in
so
on all of this.
appreciate it, Matt, because it's so hard sometimes, like looking at this stuff solo, and it's like you get
Yeah,
kind of up in your head. So I love the feedback. I'm
absolutely.
like, great, there are other people thinking about these things.
Yeah,
So yeah, thank you.
yeah. All right.
Cool. That is great. And thanks for shredding the notes. I see them happening. Okay, so my next question is just Kaylee from marketing at Replicated. I know Karen knows a bunch of this stuff because they've been coordinating. But there are things like Hazel plushie dolls and little anniversary hats for the plushie dolls. I can show you y'all pictures of them for those who are curious in one little preview. But anyway, my question here is about release party. So Replicated offered to sponsor, and they want to do a party, or they're doing a party anyway, and they wanted to say, hey, well, let's make this a release party. How do we how do we do that? I know like we've had people sponsor parties in the past. Like what is our uh yeah, what's our process? What are we comfortable with? What are our requirements? Yeah. Is that something I just talked with Karen about, or I want to bring it up on the meeting? Oops, Matt, I think you're muted.
Again, someone who works in marketing, I would recommend that we, offer it sponsorship or co-sponsorship to somebody else. So to anybody else, and just say we have 3 slots, and just say, hey, replicated is X amount is, and then replicated can say they're going to cover how many, but just so we're not, it doesn't look like replicated's owning the whole thing. It's more collaborative. So that would be my only thing, is to come up with small prospectus about, hey, the Helm replicated part, the Helm release party replicated sponsoring it. Do you want to do it? You want to sponsor it, and then just open it up to other companies. And then we can ask the CNCF to promote that and see if anybody else wants to. So we don't alienate other potential corporate sponsors, and they feel that, oh, Scott's a maintainer, so he got free free unadulterated access. That's not what we want to kind of provide.
Yeah. The thing that I would also say, Scott, so I love the idea of a party. Let me tell you that. I love the idea of a release party. All for it. Let's celebrate. I think it's really great that Replicated has stepped up and is interested in doing this. Fantastic. I think the 2 things we need to do is just make sure it's cleared with the org maintainers, which I see as a no-brainer, but it's just one of those logistical things to get a thumbs up on. I am sure you'll get a thumbs up from a majority of them. And then we have to clear the processes with the CNCF, and I have no idea what those look like for something around this. I think Rob's right that we can't show, we have to be vendor, well, there's vendor neutrality, but you have to open it up and be optional in this. And I don't know what the rules are around something like this. So it's one of those things, if you can reach out to the CNCF and just find out the rules on how this stuff works. That's the thing that I don't know. Yeah.
I can do it now. It's the for in the CNCF channel, there's a member hub.
Yeah.
Member hub is the marketing arm of this. So I'll post a question there, and I'll tag you, Scott. So who else from your side should I tag?
Uh, I think that's
Just you.
well, I mean I would say also Karen just for coordinating it, but
Yeah.
also I wonder if maybe Kaylee McHugh would probably be the best person here. I'll
Yeah.
there we go. Paste it
Thank
in.
you. Yep. I'm on it right now for you, buddy.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay.
Hmm?
That was it for that one for that agenda item for me. Thanks.
Yeah.
Um, I've got the next one. Anybody have any other agenda items? You can bump up above me, or I can just power through. I have one more. Okay, I'll power through. I had it, writing release notes for Helm 4 is not super straightforward because of all the backporting. Initially, it was pretty easy because they were either the same commits or the same code, and then for not always, but there were 2 reasons why they diverged. One is a feature that is in Helm or a bug fix or whatever that's in Helm 4 doesn't necessarily have to be backwards compatible. It can be the cleanest possible version of itself. When we backport it to Helm 3, it does need to be, and so the code is often different. And the second one is once the code, the more Helm 4 diverged from Helm 3, which makes sense over time, the code necessarily is different. So automating that is not, I don't want to say not possible, but not really plausible. So basically, I made a little list of all the commits that were mainly between two tags, and we can just update that as we need to. And then use the GitHub API to get all the PRs for those commits, the right PR for each commit, and then categorize them, into like fixes, features, refactor, the thing that we normally do. And then just went through them to see which ones were backported and made a list of those so that we have them. And I very temporarily put that up on my branch on my fork of Helm just so that it would have a place. Not that I think it needs to be, I don't want it to be in the code base, but I probably should have put it in a Google Doc, but I can do that. I put that up. I put that up. I shared it in the maintainers channel so that we can reference it and just did what I thought was a summary. But I would just like other people's feedback to look over it and just think and say, wait a second, is that a correct summary? Does that sound right? And otherwise, we can just use it. So that's my note. Yeah. And the point is that we want people to test out this alpha. We don't necessarily just want them to hit it randomly and like try to have to do all that discovery on their own. We want to like show them what to test, what's changed and so on. Obviously, we want them to try to discover things and try to break stuff and all that, but just something that will help. And we talked about this in the maintainers channel. I was initially thinking, oh, we should put that in that blog post, and I agree with Matt that it's a little too detailed for that. But I would like it if we could put it somewhere and socialize it. Where do you all think we should put something like that? Like in an issue or a doc, Google Doc?
Last week, I meant to reach out, and I started to write like a more nicer HackMD doc with, but then I lost it, unfortunately. That didn't sync and save. I was going to say, let me coordinate with you and we'll try and get something done. I don't think we need to list like every single little change in like detail, or I don't think anybody's also going to go and compare like, oh, this was actually in Helm 3 minuta. But we should. My thoughts was we would probably want to like list the big features and talk about those, and then like as paragraphs, and then smaller things, maybe some links down the end or something. But yeah, like.
Perfect. I have two docs. One is a summary, and then the other is the full change log with like the exact number of commits, so we make sure we don't miss something. And like clearly the summary is what most people want. The
Yep.
other is just for us for when we, do release notes and stuff.
I will ping you on Slack.
Okay, great. And there's a script to go along with it, so it's not like just you don't just have to trust that it's true. You can run it yourself. And okay, thank you. And then does anyone else have any thoughts about like where? I mean, did you have a thought about where that goes besides a HackMD, like for end users to access? I mean, to an issue? Yeah. Do you think?
Oh yeah, so that's the other thing we discussed last week, and this is a good opportunity. So for Helm 4 docs, how do we want to manage this process? Because I think we want to start to create them sooner rather than later. But we don't want to collide with the doc site refactoring work that you're doing, Paige. And I so want. I think need is probably the more prerogative term.
Yeah, I've been actually wondering the same thing and how we want to go about doing this because this is
Same.
a new version. And the last time we did this, we had created a whole site. So if you want to go find the V2 docs, go to v2.helm.sh and you'll find what we had done for docs.
Mhm.
So what we shouldn't do that again. It's just a snapshot in time, right? But this is where we're going to see minor alterations to the V3 docs for a little while. So I almost wonder whether we want to separate this out and just start capturing the docs. And then we'll have to do some big merge in at some point for this, because I'm not sure how to fit it into the new versioning scheme while keeping everything separate because we don't have that today. Do we just create a fork of the Helm www site and do it to there for V3? And then at some time we'll have this mass migration and have to bring in those changes in for V3 and migrate it. Paige, you might have an idea here, but whatever we're going to do, it's probably
Yeah.
going to be ugly, but we need to keep them separate at this point.
Yeah, I'm okay with some ugliness. Any docs migration I've done, it's not always as smooth as you want it to be. And there is kind of the period of, all right, but let's go get all those latest changes and make sure those are represented in the new site. And that's totally okay.
Yeah.
My main concern is I don't want this to disrupt any of like your normal documentation practices. And like, yeah, totally agree. I think having the docs in place for V4 is going to be the most important. So like if it's easiest to cut a branch on the existing site and be working, just keep working there.
Yeah, we
I-
could do that. We could just create a branch and call it
Mhm.
V4.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we want to do that? Or yeah, or call it, put a prefix on it. V4 gets into funny semantic versioning with some tools. Maybe call it Helm-V4 or release-V, something like that, dev-V4. And then we
Mhm.
can do V4 docs on that branch on the Helm www one.
That's what I would
Yeah,
do. Yeah, if it were
let's
me.
do that. Then we can start modifying from where we're at today for V4 and go
Mhm.
from there. Okay, sounds good.
And I was thinking in the meantime, we like just in terms of I know Paige the hip
Yep.
include like content reorganization and things like that. I was thinking just at least for one for one goal, we can just like be drafting, whether that's in HackMD or whether or whatever. In the meantime, as George mentioned, like a Helm version of that link that I just put, a Helm 4 version of the link I just posted, where we, you know, as Matt mentioned, there was a whole new site, and one of the pages is called Changes
Mm.
Since Helm 2, you know, something like
Yeah.
that, but for Helm 4, like, yeah, what's new with
We,
Helm?
we we need to come
Yeah.
up with that page. We need to come that page that says, you know, changes Helm 3 to Helm 4 that outlines what somebody needs to know, because there's going to be a lot.
Right. Yeah, there's I think there's two concepts. The one is release notes saying what is there, and the other one is a migration guide to what you will need to.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so we can start drafting that anyway, regardless of the. So HackMD is probably good for the moment to draft, and then once we actually get the structure, like that branch that you make page, we can maybe move it there to start drafting.
Yep.
I think I'm the one who needs to make the branch. I'll get the
Thank you.
branch
Yeah.
going.
I was gonna
I'll get the
say.
branch going. I
Oh,
don't think Paige has access. We need to get more people access to Helm dub dub dub. So
speaking of,
okay.
George has a PR for this, actually. Maybe we
Yeah.
should review this.
We need to go review it with the Helm maintainers. We got it. I'll put that on my to-do list for the rest of this week. I'm going to carve out some good Helm time this week. So okay.
Great.
Good.
In fact, oh well, actually, so I'm the moderator. It just turned 1 p.m. or sorry, top of the hour. Thanks everyone. This has been super productive. We'll see you next week. I'll te yeah, I'll text you about actually if anyone wants to stay on and if anyone wants to volunteer for moderator and notes, you can speak up now or we can just figure it out in between.
I have to drop, but I
Cool,
can
cool.
do PR review and triage and stuff this week.
Perfect, perfect. I should have
Okay.
ended sooner. Sorry, I fell down on the
Sure.
job. I'll
Right.
I'll work it out and see you all next week. Thanks.
Bye.